Hello and welcome back to yet another Kaggle Days Meetup, Surat. And thank you for joining us on Sunday. It means a lot, and I hope you have an interesting session with us today. Today we have Akshay Bahadur with us, and before we move ahead with anything, I would like to community partners merge Mozilla Gujarat Learning Lounge, DevScript, Lane Machine Learning for helping us to reaching out to more and more people out there to help the community to in AI and data science. Also, before we move ahead, I would like to tell you please like, share, and subscribe to A.I.M Learning so that you get notified whenever we go live and have interesting stuffs every weekend coming up for you. Now, I would like to welcome Akshay Bahadur with us. Akshay Bahadur's interest in computer science sparked when he was working on a women's safety application aimed towards the women's welfare in India, and since then he has been instantly tackling social issues in India through technology. He was one out of the 8 Google developers expert from India, along with being one of the 150 members worldwide for the Intel Software Innovator Program. He was also invited by Google to present his research on Indian Sign Language at Google headquarters in California, and he had also received the most influential Young Data Scientist of the Year 2019 by the International Society of Data Scientists for his contributions in the field of machine learning. And the list goes on. And then I would like to call upon Akshay Bahadur. Hi, Akshay.
Hey, thank you so much for having me.
I hope you have a great session interacting with the audience, and it's really great to have you today with us on Sunday.
Thank you so much. The feeling is mutual.
So, how you have been doing into the field of data science, or would you like to tell our audience about yourself first before we move ahead?
Sure. I mean, you pretty much covered everything, but apart from that, I would also like to add that I don't consider myself just a data scientist. I consider myself as an engineer. So anybody who's trying to get into this field, it's very simple. I started out as a Java developer, and then slowly I transitioned into this role. So if I could do it, then anybody could do it. So just hang in there.
Okay. As you said, you consider yourself engineer. So, how important is for someone to have the engineering skills as well as, the data science skills that play a role when you are going into the data science field, AI, as you can say?
Sure. So yeah. So I mean, just to I mean, there's no clear-cut rule as a difference between AI. I mean, in the difference between data scientists or data analysis or big data. But what I would like to believe is, if let's say somebody hires you, or if you start your own company, then you don't really just do on I mean, you have to do a lot of other things than developing algorithms. So developing algorithms is of course a major part, but there are other pieces to the puzzle as well. So if you consider yourself as a problem solver, you should be comfortable with all of these aspects and not just modeling or these algorithms.
Okay, yeah. And how has been your journey so far into the field of computer vision, AI, and data science and engineering?
Sure. It's been interesting. To be honest, I started out machine learning back in 2017. I was just out of college, and I was looking to, when you're out of college, you feel that you could do anything. So I explored myself. Like, I explored all the things that I was really interested in. So it was not just machine learning. I also did a bit of IoT, blockchain, because these are popular back then, and then
Yeah.
of course machine learning. Um, but the journey has been good. I have had the pleasure of working with really nice people who have always helped me and motivated me, and that's what I would also like to do.
So, do you believe in this thing that a mentor's role or a guide who can help you during this journey plays a significant amount of role in your journey when you're going it, like there should be someone who could guide you properly throughout this work process or something.
Yes, definitely. So I think so. There are. I mean, it's very subjective. I believe that getting mentorship is definitely important. But if somebody does not have a mentor, that does not mean that he cannot or will not be able to get into this field. Like for most of people, in India, when machine learning was starting out, there were not a lot of mentors or experts in India. But then it's up to you. I mean, I remember learning a lot from these online courses, Andrew Ang courses on Coursera or on YouTube. So even though don't know these people in person, I would consider them to be my mentors, because these are the ones that actually got me started in this journey.
Yeah. And like the last question before we move ahead with your presentations and learnings from your talk today, there has like what is one thing that has interested you towards computer vision, like as you know that there's like this computer vision versus NLP things happening sometimes, people saying that NLP takes algorithms from computer vision, and a lot of things that already have been done in computer vision are being used by NLP. So like what are your thoughts on all of these?
Um, so I mean, it's interesting. To be honest, I mean, you don't. I mean, there are different aspects. So I started out when I started out, I did a lot of computer vision because I did computer vision back in college, image processing as part of my curriculum. Therefore, when I started out, I did a lot of computer vision stuff because that's what I was really interested in. But then after that, when I started working, I realized that NLP is also very important because NLP, most of the business cases are related to NLP that can generate revenue. So of course, there are a lot of people that say that NLP takes some of these what do you say? Some of these inspiration from computer vision. Might be true, but all in all, if it's all the case, if it helps the entire community, I think we are in good hands.
Okay, so now moving ahead, we'll let you speak to our audience, and I'll be linking his all the important links in the description box below, so you can connect with him on LinkedIn and check out his awesome projects on his profile. And I'll be also linking to all our community partners, so you can connect with them and be a part of data science AI community.
All right, thank you so much uh, for sharing. All right, so let's quickly go ahead and start. Let me start sharing my screen. Uh, yeah, I hope you guys can see my screen. I will not be turning on my camera because of limited internet connectivity at this point. Also, if you hear something in the background, I mean, it's Sunday and I'm at home, so there are a couple of other things that are also happening. So please forgive me for that. All right. So with having said all that, let's quickly start. So this project so this presentation is very simple. I'm just going to go with basics, and I'm pretty sure that a lot of people already know a lot of these things. But let's just try to have a recap of that, so that everybody is kind of aware of what exactly is happening. And then at the same time, I'm also going to try to answer some of these basic questions or some of these questions that could affect you. So let's quickly start. Just give me 1 minute. All right. Yep. So sorry about that. Let's quickly start. Okay. Um. All right. So let's quickly start. So first of all, I will thank AIM for organizing this meetup. Kaggle Days Surat for this meetup, even though we are currently going through some of the difficult times. So yeah, I hope that you guys keep continue to do that and continue to invite more and more speakers. So a bit about myself. My name is Akshay Bahadur. I'm a senior data scientist at Lowe's. I'm also a world developer expert in machine learning. So if you want to follow along, an important link that you guys might want to look at is this one. So if you want to follow along, just go to bit.ly/kdays-20, and you will be redirected to my GitHub page, which contains all the important links for this presentation. So now let's quickly start with some of the basics. Let's start with what exactly is machine learning. I think a lot of people are aware of it, of course. That's why we are attending this meetup. But it's always good to revise some of these basic concepts. So, what is machine learning? So, machine learning basically says that you have an ordinary system, and with the help of AI, AI is a broader concept of giving intelligence to the system. Machine learning is a way of uh, making sure that your system has AI, and that is by giving data. And when you give data to the system, you can uh, make sure that that system learns over time, it predicts and it improves itself over a period of days or months or weeks. So now that we have our basic in place, let's start with our first machine learning model, and then we'll start to go beyond it. Of course. So let's start. So there are a couple of challenges that you guys will face. Of course, I have also faced these same questions. So one of the very first question, a very basic questions is, how should you? I mean, what exactly should you know before you start your first ML project? And then, of course, ML is interdisciplinary. So, as already mentioned, computer vision and NLP, they require a lot of knowledge of uh, some of these basic concepts. So, how not to get overwhelmed is also another question that is very important. Uh, what problem statement do I choose for the project? So, when you're picking up a problem, it's important to define the problem statement, and why are you picking that up, and how exactly the scope defined is very, very important when you start to work on uh, some of these very sophisticated problems. So as you can see, there are a lot of moving parts. One of the basic concepts or one of the basic questions that he will come up with is, where exactly do we start? And this causes a lot of commotion and confusion in the people or in the user. So a couple of solutions, and this of course is very subjective. People can have different views, so all the views are welcome. So first ML project, you don't need to know everything. You just have to know the basic concepts, and by basic concepts, you need to know basics of computer science and machine learning. What is training? What is testing? What is the concept of hyperparameters and all that? If you have that basic intuition, I think rest of the things become pretty easy. So typically, this follow a 60/40 ratio, and this is for almost all the users. 60% of the things that you know, and 40% of the learning opportunities. And of course, you can make these ratios depending on your level of expertise and your learning interests. Of course, one of the very basic solutions is that you cannot be a master of everything at any given time. You have to focus on the basics that are still missing, and of course, as you go ahead, you can pick up these important points later down the line. And don't rush it out. Take your time. I remember when I started out with machine learning, I spent around 1 year just learning the basic concepts. So I spent 1 year just understanding these concepts, learning them, and then trying to implement that. So you have to take your time. You cannot hope. I mean, you cannot hope to get yourself an expert in machine learning in a week or a month or 2 months. It's going to take some time. So the question is, how much understanding is needed? The answer is just enough to convince yourself, because as you go ahead and as you explore yourself and explore the this field, a lot of the things will become clear as you research on the internet or when you read books. So just enough to convince yourself that you can solve a problem, and then you can just get started with it. Even if you're not comfortable with the language or the concepts, it's still fine, as long as you are pretty determined to make sure that you are able to finish everything, or if you're able to finish the task at hand. I think that is everything that is needed. Uh, and of course, ML is interdisciplinary. How not to get overwhelmed is one of the basic questions. So now let's talk about the problem statement. So one of the very basic things that I recommend is, let's say if you want to start with a machine learning problem, and of course these are a bit advanced problems. Of course, you can pick up some of the basic ones like Titanic data set from Kaggle or some of the other data sets. But let's say if you want to solve a problem that is actually can impact people, it's important to identify the problems in your surrounding, maybe places you visit or somebody near you or some things near you that you feel could be tackled using machine learning. So of course, decide if the problem is machine learning friendly or not. So one of the important things that I read earlier when I was starting with machine learning is a good machine learning engineer knows when to use machine learning, but a great one knows when not to use machine learning. So it's very important to understand the scope of your problem, and then based on the scope, you want to understand if the machine learning problem is actually a machine learning problem or not, or if you can solve it using any other technique. Of course, one of the very important concepts is participating in Kaggle competitions, but at the same time, you also have to understand that are not chasing the leaderboard. You are there to just learn. You're able to explore. Think of the bigger picture that's at hand, and of course, at the same time, has a very amazing resource to learn creative ML. You can go to mlwave.com and check that out. Now let's start talk about going beyond these basic concepts. So now, up until now, we have covered some of the basic concepts that are required in machine learning, and these are some of the basic things that I think a lot of people have must already have an idea of. Let's try to dive a bit deep into some of these concepts. And of course, again, the views are very subjective. This presentation is actually taken from one of my friends. His name is Shai Paul. He's also a machine learning researcher, pretty good at what he does. So yeah, so I just took some of his work and integrated with my thoughts, and I'm just trying to share my thoughts with you on the subject. So what exactly the flow that you follow, or let's say if you're starting out with machine learning, the flow that I will recommend you to follow is this one. So first is you'll define a ML problem and you propose a solution. So the solution does not have to be the best one, but it is just something that you have in mind so that when you're starting out with machine learning, you know what exactly is your end goal. What do you want to solve with this solution? Then you construct a data set. So by construction, I mean whether it's getting from Kaggle or some of the any other resources, or if you want to make your or create your own data set. Transformation of the data is very important. You want to make sure that your data, if it is gathered uh, from scraping or some other or maybe some other resource, you want to make sure that your data is in the correct format so that your machine learning model could learn from it. Then you train the model and then you use the model to make predictions. So this is a very sequential flow that you would probably go with if you're starting out with machine learning. Uh, so yeah. So some things to consider. First is of course the data. How do I collect the data? That's a very important question. So as already mentioned, Kaggle and other resources are important. Web scraping is something that you could do. Manual collection of data is something that you could also do. But at the same time, you need to understand that some problems you have to ensure that the data is authentic. Maybe let's say if you're working on medical data, right? So then you cannot create your own data set because you are not sure if the data is authentic or not. So it's important in some of these very typical cases that your data is authentic. Now, next is something that you could do is you can also look for a similar data set that is available. So based on that, you can even collect your own data based on based on your this data set that's available, or you can even create your own data set based on the already existing data. So one of the questions that is important is how do I become one with data? And again, my friend Shayak Paul has written a has written a beautiful article on Floyd Hub called as Becoming One with Data. The link is in the description itself. So feel free to have a look at this as well. Now comes the important or interesting aspect is modeling part. Some things to consider while you're modeling. Which model should I consider? How do I train a model? How can I train my model faster? Of course, better, and of course, how do I validate the model, and how do I debug a model? So let's talk a bit about these three first. So, which model should I consider is something that comes with experience. So, in some of the cases that we have seen with image data, CNN works well. With NLP data, maybe RNN works well. But what I do, the practice that I follow is I start with some of the very basic concepts of basic machine learning algorithm, and once I have a basic model ready, I could call it my baseline model. And any model that performs better than this baseline model is going to be my next baseline. So you can sort of form an iteration of trying out different models, and then of course with experience you will understand that, maybe I can skip CNN for this, or maybe I can skip a certain kind of sequential model for this, and I can work on the other one. Uh, Training and validation is something that is of course come is pretty basic. So training you want to make sure that your model your problem statement is well defined. So as you can see, at every step I keep on mentioning that you need to understand your problem statement. So understanding your problem statement is very important, because once you have that in your hand, once you have your problem statement very well defined, then you can train a model that is accustomed to your solution, right? So training and validation is important. Debugging is something that you could skip if you're just starting out. But let's say if you want to push the model into production, and if you want to serve it to a million customers, then debugging is important, because at this point for most of the people, machine learning is kind of black box. So you define your algorithm, you train your model, and then you get the accuracy, you get other metrics, and you feel that the machine learning model is performing well. But debugging is something that comes later on, where your model is serving a lot of customers and it's behaving weirdly in some cases. So there's a good course on testing and debugging which you could check out. Go to developers.com/machine learning/testing debugging, and you will find a link to the course. It's a very interesting course. So if you are medium or advanced level of user, you can definitely have a look. This, and of course, one of the things that you should consider, and this is one of the important questions. Let's say if you are trying to, use it for actually deploying it into production where other people will use it, then you have to consider that where exactly do I want to integrate my machine learning model with? Do I want to run it on computers, or do I want to run it on mobile phones, or do I want to run it on any other microcontrollers like Raspberry Pi or Arduino? So So depends. So if it's a web application, the integration will be different. If it's a mobile application, if it's a Raspberry Pi. So there are a lot of possibilities, and you have to explore all of that depending on which customers or which devices that you're targeting. So, and this is probably the most important aspect, is you have to think about other components and not just ML. So machine learning is of course important and it's interesting, but it is only part of the entire problem. So the entire problem starts from data collection, data wrangling, machine learning, modeling, deployment, monitoring, all of that. So machine learning forms an important aspect, but it is not the only aspect of a problem. So when you're working with machine learning on scale, when you are actually deploying it to people on production, or where people are using it, you have to make sure that you give equal importance to other aspects or the components of your project, and not just machine learning. Of course, the last question that I kept on mentioning is that can you push this model to production, uh, and can we actually deploy it, and can we will other people pay me for using my service or for using my model? So now I want you guys to have a few takeaways from this session. Uh, so as already mentioned, first is of course identify the problems is very important. You have to have a rough draft of the solution ready, um, and then you have to understand that you have certain skills, and then you will need certain skills uh, to complete this project. So, of course, you can do two things. You can either learn those skills, or you can get help from other people. And at the same time, the most important the most important step is just to get started, because a lot of the things are missed when you procrastinate, and it's normal human tendency. But if you want to learn something, it's very important to for the last step, that is to starting with it. All right, so now I want to talk about. So I've been talking about a lot about how exactly can you go and use machine learning to solve problems. But it would be weird if I did not show you what I did using machine learning, right? I can give you these presentations and these discussions, but if I never tried it out myself, I cannot validate my own theory or my own uh, project or my own discussion. So now I'll be talking about Indian Sign Language Recognition, or ISLAR. This is the project that I'm currently working on. And as the name suggests, it's a sign language recognition system for India. So let's look at the problem statement. So 40 million people in India currently have speech and hearing impairment. Uh, Distance between Mumbai and Pune is around 80 kilometers. This is the place where I stay and where I work. And within this distance, there is some variation in sign language that I noticed. And these are the different problems. So the solution, or the ideal solution, is to standardize ISL like American Sign Language. So basically leveraging AI to accurately predict minute changes in sign and symbol. And the last point is important and is also something that I am very interested in, is that keeping the resource intensity of the application to be bare minimum, so that we could scale this model to as many customers as you want, and even to the remote places in India. So this is some of the development process that I was going through. So this is I mean, I used to volunteer at a place or at an institute. These are the students from that institute which helped me to understand sign language and learn sign language. And at the same time, I understood what they're going through. So you can have a look at the entire video. It's present on my website and also my YouTube channel. So feel free to have a look at that later. So before I would, I mean, before I kind of go towards the videos, just want to get something, just want to give a brief introduction. So I went to this sign language institute to just to learn sign language. I thought that I can just go in there and start the problem and then maybe finish it in a month or so and help these people out. But when I went to this institute, I started learning sign language. Then I understood the problems. So it's important to have a very well defined problem statement. So then my problem statement became a bit wider. First of, I mean, earlier I thought that there's only one sign language in India, but then I realized that there were multiple languages which are slight variations, and that is because India is a very diverse country. So then I started dividing my work into different cases. There were different phases. This is phase zero, which is basically I'm only working with hand gestures. So you can see on the screen on the right that I am filtering out only my hand gestures from the entire image. So I'm only working on uh, these kind of skeleton images for now. And as you can see, these are only letters and numbers. So alphabets or numbers. So this can solve some cases, but at the same time, having a conversation is much more than just alphabets and numbers. So then I developed phase one, which is integrating my facial expressions with hand gestures, and these some of the examples from it. And then I kind of made a small prototype of it. So this is the prototype. So as you can see, that these are different gestures, and I'm integrating it with my facial expressions and both my hand gestures, and I'm now able to not just capture alphabets, letters, but also some of these gestures which are important and that could be used by people in a more redundant aspect. So this looks good, and then at the same time, I So this was a very small snippet from a time where I got to showcase the same project at Google headquarters in California. So I just shared this information with them that I'm working on this project, and I am, think that I would want to showcase it to the TensorFlow team and get to know their thoughts on it. And they were kind enough to invite me to the GD summit, and then at the same time I displayed my project, and I got really good feedback from the TensorFlow community and also the TensorFlow team, who helped me out if I want, how can I actually streamline my process a bit more and make it more robust. And at the same time, I was fortunate enough to be actually filmed by the Google crew. They came to my place and they filmed this whole story. And I just want to share that with you. It's a 3-minute video. And I'm going to play that next. And then at the end, I'm just going to get to know your thoughts on this. I come from a father and my brother.
The sound is not audible, Akshay, and the video is stopping.
Can you repeat that?
The sound was not audible, and the video was getting.
Okay, not an issue. So you can have a look at that maybe later on. That's fine. But you can have on the GD website. The link is also in my presentation. So feel free to have a look at that as well. So with that, I would like to conclude this discussion for today. Uh, and if you have any questions for me, feel free to reach out to me on the chat itself, or you can even reach out to me on LinkedIn or on my personal website. And at the same time, if you feel that you have good, I mean, if you feel that I could have improved somewhere, you can always go to akshabahadur.com, which is my website, and you can leave your comments in the chat where I read it regularly and I try to improve my presentation or my code. So that's it from my side. Thank you so much. This is Akshay Bahadur. You can find me at Akshay Bahadur 3 on Twitter. You can find me at akshabahadur.com on my personal website. And if you want to have a look at all these information, the slides, go to bit.ly/kdays 20, where you will find the link to my GitHub, which contains all the information related to this session. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And thank you so much for having me. If you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer those.
There's one question that says, "Can we get the source code?"
So, interesting question. I don't have the source code. I mean, I cannot open source the source code yet because it's not mature enough to be open sourced. But I'm going to be open sourcing it soon. Then you guys can have a look at that and maybe improve on it. So that's going to happen in a couple of months.
Also, like as you said that the GD they filmed your talk and your journey. How was that feeling? People recognizing your work and you doing what you love, and then people recognize it for you and look up to you now.
I think, to be honest, it's of course it's a very special feeling, and it's something that I will always cherish, no matter how old I get. But at the same time, I also understood that there are a lot of problems in India, and not just India, like any local community. There are a lot of problems that people are facing, and if we could use technology to help those, even if you are not solving them, but even if you're addressing them, more and more people are getting aware of them. I think that is more than enough. So, as already mentioned, I spent around 1 year just developing this. So, I remember going to this institute in January of last year. So, I spent 6 months just learning sign language, understanding how can I integrate those in my project. So it was a lot of people, and of course, a lot of friends helped me. My family members also helped me. So it's a great feeling. Yeah.
So do you so it's the data science field or any field come into a field?
I did not get your question. Can you
I mean to say that, as you said, it took you like 6 months to understand the sign language. So, a particular field or a particular, like if it's web dev or if it's even data science, it involves a lot of commitment and a lot of patience and practice to get it into to this. But nowadays, people think that it's money, the hype, that's why they are going into AI. Okay. I don't know. I'm just asking you. So, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense to be honest. A lot of people I know, maybe me at also on some level, I thought that machine learning is something where you will get a lot of money, and probably it's something that was, I mean, it's getting the hype back then. So yeah, I mean, it doesn't it if your motivations could be different, but as long as you are not taking things for granted, I think you have a good uh, what can you say? I mean, you have a good potential in this field because this is a growing field. So yeah.
So we have a question from one of our viewers.
Yeah,
Um, what about the other projects? I mean, which projects you found more interesting than the ICLAR?
definitely. I think this is one of the basic projects. I find a lot of projects very interesting. So recently, I have been reading a lot about NLP as well. So something that I really found interesting is the BERT paper and the BERT implementation, which is something that when I started out with machine learning, NLP was probably the most sophisticated implementation at that time was LSTMs, and we thought that LSTMs is going to be really interesting. But then BERT came, and BERT is something that is solving a lot of problems. At the same time, we also in computer vision as well, we had these massive architectures. Thought that what the state of the art, but then a lot of the other papers came and then they squashed those. So interesting projects. If you look at me, any project I will find interesting. It's if it is helping people. So I remember seeing a project on LinkedIn itself. I don't remember the exact person, but he had this for blind people. So he attached a camera to the end of the stick for the blind people, and then he was giving feedback into as a voice feedback to the earphones. So they could, I mean, this could recognize if a person is, if a blind person is walking towards an obstacle, so we can streamline that.
Oh, that's interesting. Like you also mentioned during the talk about the web scraping thing, and we need a lot of data sometimes. And now also you said that you started to go into NLP. What are your thoughts on like the now we have got generally India. So what are your thoughts on this?
Can you repeat the last part of the question, please?
Said that you have a good corpus for in Hindi language now, but like there's a lot of work going around the Indian low resource languages and other low resource languages, because generally the NLP papers are generally more implemented in Germany, Spanish, Japanese, and English languages because we have a good amount of data for that languages. But now the work is now more revolving around how would these transformers and words perform for Indian languages or other low resource languages that the data sets is very uh,
Yeah.
low in number, and like we don't have a good clean data set to work on. So what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. Like recently I saw, I mean, read a vlog where this person trained but on Hindi, like on Hindi language. So sounded pretty interesting. At the same time, I think now when more and more research, or when BERT is getting democratized, just come and use
uh,
it.
we lost you like in the between, so could you like
Yeah, go ahead. No, that's not an issue. Like I'll repeat myself. So, yeah. So, I mean, today, I mean, a couple of days back, read this blog on this person who used Hindi and trained a BERT model on top of that. So a lot of these things are now possible because of transfer learning in BERT, because previously, sorry, transfer learning in NLP before, because transfer learning was mostly used in computer vision before that. And now because we have transfer learning, people with low resources can also use state-of-the-art machine learning models to train on their local data set. So people can come and train it on Hindi language or on maybe Bengali or some other regional languages. So yeah, I think now NLP has come to a point where a lot of people are getting interested because it has a good business value. At the same time, with transfer learning, people can now not worry about training it entirely on themselves. They can use these pre-trained models. Uh, so yeah, it's great. I think it's going to be much better in a couple of years.
well, before we sign off, last question to you: that what is an interesting AI or data science application that you have encountered, besides you have not worked on that, but you have encountered it's a very good use for the society that this thing had got developed?
Yeah, great question. So I actually, so if you know, I mean, of course, a lot of you might already know this, but Google has opened the research lab in India. So before that, Google had research labs in the US, in Europe, and now they have a research lab in Bangalore, and they are working on these interesting problems in India. So they have these three cases. First is diabetic retinotherapy, which is given the image of the eye. They can detect whether the person has diabetes or not. So it's interesting. Not, I mean, it's a bit tricky, but yeah, I mean, I found it pretty interesting. Second is they developed an algorithm to predict and forecast floods in India. So if you know Bihar and places in the north are very prone to getting flooded in these rainy seasons. So Google has developed a machine learning model that is going to predict floods, and it can even alert people in that region. And the third one is app called as Bolo, which is again an NLP app, and it teaches kids how to read and and recite Hindi. So all these things, these three applications are available on the Google AI lab in Bangalore on the web page.
Yeah, they recently launched this one thing also, like you hum a song and it's tune, and then you
Yeah,
can make it
something like
tell.
Shazam, like something
Yeah.
similar to Shazam. Yeah, pretty
So
interesting.
so we have a question like, can you suggest the best platform to learn ML or AI which gives better clarity?
Um, it's very subjective one again. So I personally like Coursera quite a lot because the courses are well structured, and at the same time the courses are I mean, they're taught by good researchers, so you know that you are in good hands. At the same time, you have other resources like Udacity, Udemy, which are pretty good. So these are like video resources. If you're only talking about blog, then checking out some official blog posts from TensorFlow, PyMet Search, or something that I found pretty interesting.
Okay. Anything? Okay, we have another question. Have you used 68? Uh, Face shape landmark predictor for face capturing.
Yeah, so I've not used 68 phase shape. I tried it out, but it was a bit slow. For because I wanted to get good frames per second, good FPS. I could not get that, so I trained my own model, trained my own predictor for that. So you can get the data from Kaggle. I got the data from Kaggle, which is nothing but faces, and then these values to these key points, and then you can train your own model on top of that. And I use some techniques to make it more lightweight.
Okay. And we have, what are the other algorithms that you use? What are the algorithms you use for hand detection?
So you can try a couple of things. I did not use any machine learning algorithm. I used a computer vision filtering technique, which is nothing but blurring and edge detection and color detection. On top of that, I was able to filter out my hand gestures. Of course, I cannot go into details at this point because the project is not open source. But yeah, I did not use machine learning for it. You could use machine learning, but I used computer vision techniques because I wanted to make it faster.
Okay. And where can a beginner learn more about AI and more
So
about
yeah, I think I mean what I really found useful was these online courses because these are because an instructor teaches you and you have assignments at the end of the week. So I like that format, so I prefer Coursera. At the same time, you can also use Udacity. Udacity, Coursera are two things that I will recommend. Of course, you have Udemy, which is also pretty good. And then you have these free of cost courses on YouTube as well. And then you have fast.ai as well, which I think these are the blogs or resources that I really enjoy.
So, is there anything like you before we sign off and you want to share with our viewers?
Um, so of course there are a lot of things I would like to share, but in the interest of time, I'm just going to keep it very short. So a few words of advice is you know, you can start off in any field, doesn't actually matter. If you're really interested in machine learning, you just have to be persistent. So spend time on machine learning, learning it. It's going to take maybe 6 months, 1 year, but then you can always transition into this field. For people who are already in this field, I would highly recommend that open source contributions and writing research papers are very important because they increase your credibility. At the same time, you are contributing back to the community. So these things are important. And at the same time, talking about myself, I am currently working on very interesting projects myself and very interesting topics, which I will be open sourcing, releasing soon. So hope you guys have fun with that.
Thank you for having us. And like, is there anything where people can follow blogs or newsletter type of thing? That do you follow anything where we can, like, people can be updated about all the current happenings in AI and the new research papers coming up? Is there something, anything that you follow or be updated with about?
Yeah, so you can follow 2 minute papers on YouTube. You can follow a PyMeth search blog, which is something that I also follow. You have to watch data science, which is of course very popular. Everybody knows about it. And at the same time, you can follow these great people on Twitter or LinkedIn. Uh, Maybe researchers, Andrew Wang. So they keep tweeting or releasing new stuff. So yeah. So these things are something that I do to stay updated in this field.
Thank you so much, Akshay, for spending your Sunday morning time with our community and helping us know more about computer vision and how we can go beyond our first ML projects. And thank you so much for everyone watching this. Okay, so we have more question. Could you please help to know how I should face struggle for the initial phase of learning from Kaggle?
Yes, so initial phase is to be tough, even if you learn from any resource. So I think the only thing that I could say is, uh, you know, just keep doing it. Let's say I remember doing the machine learning Coursera course twice because I did not understand it for the first time. So if somebody is good with mathematics, if they're good with computer science, they can do it in one go. But since I was not very good with mathematics, I had to go do it twice. So being persistent is important. So if you are finding Kaggle to be tough, it's fine because it's supposed to be tough. That's why you get these grandmasters who are one of the best in the field. But at the same time, you should not use Kaggle as a measure of your success. So try exploring other learning options. Maybe try YouTube, Coursera, where it's much less competitive. And once you have a good understanding, then of course you can go back to Kaggle and then you will do well in the same competitions that you struggled initially.
Well, thank you for your beautiful insights to the question asked by our viewers. And yeah, that's all for today and today's meetup. Until we meet next time on Saturday and Sunday with another speaker sharing their views and points to another things. Thank you so much, Akshay.
Thank you so much, man. Have a good day. Thanks.